Casual, where casuals like me talk about casual things, everything sports. Today is going to be part one of day one free agency recap / grades for the 2024 NFL offseason. And as I mentioned, we're going to do the AFC first, and then a video coming out most likely tomorrow, we'll do the NFC just in time for day two to start. So let's get right into it. So first, this isn't going to be in order. We're going to go team by team here. So first, we have Dion Dawkins signing an extension with the Bills, 3 years, $60 million. Slightly expensive, excuse me, but really good lineman. So I'm going to give him a B+. They keep some of that core around. They don't lose too many guys. Then on the Bills also re-signed their edge rusher, AJ Epinenza, on a 2-year, $20 million deal. What I think is great value. He's 25 years old, had 6.5 sacks, so I'm going to give that an A-. Dolphins signed Jonnu Smith to a 2-year, $10 million contract. So I'm going to give that a B. Solid tight end. They also picked up former Seahawks linebacker Jordan Brooks on a 3-year, $30 million contract. I'm going to give that, I'll say B-. Yes, he's 26, but he had a downish year compared to his previous season, so who knows what that means. Then we have the Patriots signing Antonio Gibson to a pretty decent contract, but I'm going to give this a C+. It doesn't really move the needle for me. I think they got to stick with Ramondre Stevenson, so I'm going to give that a C+. However, I will give Kendrick Bourne a B. Had a solid season. He's only 28 years old. Not a bad signing. And Hunter Henry, I'll give a B+. Now, he had a great season, so I was thinking of giving it in the A range, but they did give him a 3-year, $27 million deal, which could be viewed as somewhat expensive. So that's why I kind of moved it down from potentially an A- to a B+. Speaking of A-, though, I got Mike Onwenu, Patriots lineman, re-signing on a 3-year, $57 million contract. He's really good. He's really young. I gave that, as I mentioned, an A-. And the last move from the Patriots is Jacoby Brissett, bringing him on a 1-year deal. I gave that a B+. He's a good veteran for their potential, very likely rookie quarterback. They said they were going to sign a veteran, and it ended up being Jacoby Brissett, former Patriot. So I thought that was a very good pickup, has some familiarity with there, so that gives it a B+ for me. Then moving on to the AFC North first, the Ravens re-signed stud young lineman Madubuike on a 4-year, near $100 million contract. I gave that an A+. I love Madubuike, and they couldn't let him, Patrick Queen, and Geno Stone walk. They had to bring one of them. I think Madubuike was their top priority, obviously, and I think it should have been, so I gave that an A+. Now, however, they did, as I mentioned, lose Geno Stone to the Bengals on a very cheap 2-year, $15 million deal, so I gave that an A because he is 24. He had a great season last year with 7 interceptions. However, they only gave him a 2-year deal, so I feel like if they could have signed him for 4 years at that annual salary, it would have been one of the better free agent signings of the whole offseason. But it's still a great signing because he's still gone for 2 years. Then we get to the Browns acquiring Jerry Jeudy. This is pretty old. There's going to be some moves from before free agency, but Jerry Jeudy getting traded to the Browns. I gave the Browns a B+ because he only gave up a 5th and a 6th. Pretty low value, high upside. Now, Denver, I gave it a C+, maybe B-, because they are trading, I believe, an expiring deal. I believe Judy's a free agent next year, but you only got a 5th and 6th in return. So that's why it's on the lower grade for me. But they were able to bring back Zadarius Smith on a 2-year, roughly $23 million deal, I'm pretty sure. It's a little on the expensive side, but he's still a great veteran pass rusher. So I think that was a great signing. So I give it a B-. And as I'm recording this, the Bengals have just cut Joe Mixon, and it seems like they're signing Zach Moss. So that's something that just happened. We'll definitely talk about that on tomorrow's recap. But that is crazy. There were reports that Joe Mixon would be cut, and I guess it's official now. Carrying on with the last edition from the AFC North, we have Russell Wilson getting traded, or not traded, signing to the Steelers. I gave this an A- because it's a very cheap contract. You're not paying him anywhere near the amount of money Denver's paying him. So it's a very low risk, high potential, high reward contract. Because if he's not great, you didn't give him much. If you need to bench him, you have Kenny Pickett, who knows how good he still is, or how good he still can be. And then if he returns to, he not necessarily returns to his prime, because he still had a good season last year in Denver. He can play well, get the most out of guys like Najee, Freiermuth, and Pickens. For less than $2 million, that's a great signing for us, for the Seahawks. For the Steelers. That's why I gave it an A-. Then for the AFC South, Texans made a bunch of great moves in my opinion. First, they re-signed Dalton Schultz, gave that an A. They signed Nico Autry, a good veteran who had a great season, double-digit sacks, I believe, on a 2-year deal, gave that a B+. They signed former Titans linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair. He's only 26 years old. You reunite him with DeMeco Ryans. I gave that an A. And then they signed one I did not see coming. They signed Jeff Okudah, who I believe was on the Falcons. Only 1 year, $4 million. Just low value, high reward type contract. So I gave that a B-. So I really liked what the Texans did this offseason. Then we get to the Colts. They brought Michael Pittman back. I gave that an A. Great value, young, really good receiver for Anthony Richardson. Had to keep him around. And they also re-signed linebacker Zaire Franklin. He's had, I believe, 2 back-to-back 100-plus tackle seasons. He's only 27. It was not that expensive of a contract. It was 3 years, about $30 million, but that's not too bad. So I gave that a B+, maybe even an A-. And moving on, we have the Jags, who made a plethora of moves. And it started off with a very interesting one, trading for Mac Jones. Now, for the Jags' perspective, I gave this a C+. I mean, you only gave up a 6. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is your guy. I don't think they have any plans of doing anything with Mac Jones, so I don't really know exactly why. I guess he could be a pretty good backup, and I actually gave New England a B+ for this move because they avoid having to pay Mac Jones, and they're able to trade him they're able to lose. They don't lose him for nothing. They're able to get at least a 6th-round pick out of him. They probably had no plans of keeping him, so you avoid him walking for nothing, and you can still get a 6th-round pick. So that's why I gave that a B+, maybe a B there. Then they made 4 splashes in free agency. First, they signed Gabe Davis to a 3-year, near $40 million deal. I gave this an A-. I think that's great value for Gabe Davis and a great weapon for Trevor Lawrence. And then they signed Ezra Cleveland, who I also gave an A-. They bring him back, I believe he was on the Jags, if I'm not mistaken. Great young lineman. So I gave that an A-. He's only 25 years old. Then they get Mitch Morse, who was released by the Bills. Solid veteran, gave that a B. They got him on a 2-year deal. And then I also gave the Darnell Savage pickup a B as well. 26 years old. Solid young safety for the Jags. And then to finish off the AFC South, we have the Titans. Their big move, they actually made 2 big moves, and then another pretty big one as well. They signed Tony Pollard to a 3-year, $8 million deal. I gave this a B because he did have a down year in Dallas. I still think he can be really good. And it's not the most expensive contract, I think it is $8 million a year. So I gave that a B. Then they signed center Lloyd Cushenberry to a 4-year, $50 million deal. I gave this an A-. He's only 26 years old, still so much room to develop. And if you can get a young, really good lineman for a sophomore potential franchise quarterback like Will Levis, I think you do it. So I think it's a great signing. Then they picked up Chidobe Awuzie in a 3-year, $36 million deal. I gave this like a C plus, B minus, because he is on the older side. He's not old. He is 28. It is a 3-year, $13 million, which is a decent amount of money for a corner. So you just gotta hope he continues to play at that level, and if he does, it can definitely be in that B minus, B range. But right now, I have it as mainly a C plus. Then to finish off the AFC, we have the AFC West. Start off with the Chiefs, who brought Chris Jones back, gave that an A plus. They needed to bring him back. They did just that. 3 years, 5 years, $158 million contract. It is expensive, but he is the best D tackle in football, depending, I guess, what you consider Aaron Donald and who you think's better, if you consider him a D tackle. But you just needed to bring Chris Jones back, and they did just that. And they also brought Drew Tranquill back on a 3-year, $19 million. Great value for Drew Tranquill. So I gave that a B plus. Keep him in the room. We'll see what they do with Willie Gay. And of course, L'Jarius Sneed, he's probably on his way out. Then with the Raiders, they signed Gardner Minshew to a 2-year, $25 million deal. Now, I personally gave this a C plus, and the reason behind this is, yes, he's a decent quarterback, but I think they should play Aiden O'Connell. He had a great, I thought he had a really good year when he got his reps in, and maybe instead of paying a guy like Minshew, they should have signed maybe a guy like Jacoby Brissett and kept Aiden O'Connell, but we'll see what they do with that. Now, if Minshew plays the whole season, plays well, obviously this will be much better than a C plus. But if they just start Aiden O'Connell for the whole season, I think this is in that C range. But however, they did sign Christian Wilkins, one of the best D tackles in football, still very young. To pair him along Mason Crosby is one of the best D-line duos in football, so I give that an A plus. Then moving on to the Chargers, the last team, because Denver didn't do too much. They brought Will Lutz back, so I think there was miscommunication of where he was going to go, but I think he went back to Denver. But they didn't do too much in the first day in terms of adding players. But the Chargers, they signed Gus Edwards on a 2-year deal. I gave this a C plus. He's a solid running back. But my only question is if he can be that true running back, because they did lose Austin Eckler to the Commanders, which we'll talk about in the NFC version. So they have guys like Joshua Kelly. So I don't know if they want Gus Edwards to be that number one. I don't really know. So I gave it a C plus. And then Will Dissly, the tight end, I gave him a B minus. Very cheap contract. Solid tight end depth. Not much to be said there. And that is it for my grades. And to go over some of my winners and losers. Winners, I think the Jags made a ton of amazing signings. The Mac Jones trade, it wasn't the best in my opinion for them, but they didn't really give up much. So I still think they were one of the winners, at least from the AFC side. Again, like I said, I think Houston had a great free agency class, brought back guys like Schultz, and then added Autry and Azeez Al-Shaair. I think maybe both from the Titans, so you can steal those away from your division rivals. And then I also think the Chiefs had a pretty decent, now I know it was just re-signing guys, but you needed to bring those type of guys back. And then maybe some losers. The Chargers were rumored, I think, to get, or not rumored, but like they could have signed a bunch of guys. They didn't really sign too much. Now it's only day one, so there's not too much. Don't put too much into that. And then, what could be another? Maybe the Broncos, since they didn't add too much. They cut all these players. Sean Payton is completely changing his team around, and they didn't really add anybody notable on the first day. So maybe those are the two losers from day one. But again, it's just day one. There's nothing too much to put in that in terms of this team didn't add anybody, because there's still tons of amazing free agents. But that is going to do it for my AFC Day 1 recap of 2024 free agency. Tomorrow will be the NFC version of Day 2, maybe posted on the same day. And then as soon as Day 2 concludes, we'll grade and recap that one as well. But thanks for listening. Make sure to comment what grades you disagree with, agree with, what grades you would give your favorite team's moves. Also, leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on. And that is it for me. Peace.